Welcome back everyone, and it's time to go balls deep into Attack on Titan. This time around, we'll be going into the brutal history of the first ever living Titan, Ymir Fritz. We'll be explaining her origins and the true account of the mystery on how Ymir became a Titan to then spread this power throughout her generation, ultimately giving Eren his tragic destiny. And also we'll explain how Titans are made, like where the bones and flesh and matter comes from. We also have a lot of Attack on Titan content lined up, and if there is any topics you want us to break down from lore to science, along with any simple explanation of something you need to understand, then again, let us know down below.
Beginning with Ymir Fritz, the true story of Attack on Titan begins around 2000 years ago. Ymir's village was pillaged and enslaved by the ancestors of the Eldian tribe. And that's just one example of the barbaric nature of this group. They would cut out the tongues of their slaves so that they could not speak, and the king of the tribe even threatened to gouge out the eyes of their slaves. One night, Ymir, being an innocent girl, sees pigs that are caged in and wanted to project her own desire to be freed. She frees the pigs, which becomes the catalyst to her rebirth as the founding Titan. The leader of the Eldian tribe 2000 years ago, King Fritz, demanded that the slaves reveal to him who was the one who released the pig livestock. Otherwise, they will have one eye gouged out, stating slaves don't need two eyes.
Hey yo, what the fuck?
At this point, the rest of the slaves sold out Ymir and her so-called crime. King Fritz frees Ymir just to have her hunted down like a wild animal. And it is at this moment where Ymir stumbles across a tree. After she entered the tree, she suddenly fell into a deep body of water. Or how you guys like to make fun of accent, water. Water? Water. Water? Forget it. So, as she drowned deeper, an unusual organic root or spinal-like entity started to attach itself to Ymir's spine, where she transformed into the first ever Titan to walk in the world of Attack on Titan. This creature that envelops Ymir is inspired by a real-life creature known as the hallucigenia. In chapter 137, Zeke explains that the hallucigenia is the personification of what he thinks is the meaning of life: to reproduce and to leave a mark that someone existed, to persist despite being in the face of death. This concept manifests through the paths for Ymir to allow her to persist through death. Additionally, the concept of Titans were likely a projection of her desire to be protected by something bigger than her. Her desire to be free of everything manifested in an internal cage that frees her of the pain that comes from living. Yet, she was still pained by the mental shackles that had been placed on herself all this time due to growing up as a slave. Acquiring powers that can only be described as godlike, the chain of slavery, and being a product of her environment, it pulled Ymir back to return to King Fritz out of her own free will per se.
Bitch, are you dumb? Pardon me? Are you dumb? You idiot. You're honestly an idiot.
Thus, she became a pawn to Fritz and his kingdom Eldia, destroying the king's oppositions as well as capturing more territory across the land for the prosperity of Eldia. Thanks to Ymir Fritz, Eldia transformed from some no-name tribe to a full-blown nation with unmatched power. As a reward, quotations, reward for her hard work, King Fritz gifted her the best reward he felt was fit for a slave: to become his concubine. Ymir Fritz would continue to capture more land and destroy more enemies, including the Malians, whilst bearing more of King Fritz's children, birthing up to 3 during her lifetime: Sheena, Rose and Maria, which would eventually be the names of the different worlds in Paradise. 13 years after gaining the Titan power, as the Eldian tribe grew its tyrannical grip on the land, King Fritz's enemies grew in number too, of course. So because of this growing number of hatred for him, there was an an assassination attempt on his life. However, Ymir Fritz jumped in front of King Fritz to protect him from an incoming spear, which pierced her body. This led to her dying on the spot. So frantically, the Eldian Empire were thinking, wait a second, we need to maintain our power. So King Fritz forced his daughters to eat their mother in an attempt to retain the Titan powers. Imagine how sick you have to be, because even on his deathbed, King Fritz commanded his daughters to reproduce and force his grandchildren to eat their spines just upon their death. This cycle repeated so that Ymir Fritz's blood would live on and the Titan power remained in Eldian control. This led to the creation of the subjects of Ymir, the nation of people who are capable of transforming into Titans. This also ended up creating the division of Ymir's original power into 9 Titans, who were then used to build the Empire of Eldia then on. Now let's clear up some confusion I know many of you guys might have about the differences between Fritz's royal blood and the subjects of Ymir. The subjects of Ymir are a group of people who inherited Ymir's supernatural DNA from the hallucigenia worm, which is what allows them to have the capability of transforming into a Titan. As Ymir's DNA itself was changed, and no matter how many generations pass, her Titan gene will not get diluted as it is the dominant allele. Yes guys, I'm giving you a little bit of that dose of anime bullshit science. So therefore, due to that, when an Eldian who is a subject of Ymir reproduces with another race, the offspring will still end up becoming a subject of Ymir. This is how the subjects of Ymir became the majority in the Eldian Empire. However, because of this large scale breeding, whatever was left of King Fritz's human royal blood was lost in the diluted gene pool, right? And this is the reason why regular Eldians cannot control Ymir, as she doesn't recognize them as part of the royal family. The royal family are those who directly inherited the royal blood of King Fritz. Now, as we all know, Ymir had 3 daughters with King Fritz. Let's call them the first generation of the subjects of Ymir. The blood of Fritz is still at its highest due to him being a pure human. His blood can get diluted over time. This is why Fritz made sure to keep the founding Titan powers as well as the other remaining 8 Titan powers within the family. And most likely to keep this intact, he had to do inbreeding within the family, just like how royals in our own world would do back in the day, in order to keep the bloodline pure. Yes, it gets worse. I am unfortunately insinuating the realistic possibility that King Fritz also made one of his own daughters a concubine, as one of them had to have become the queen of Eldia after he passed away.
Oh! What the fuck?
This was in order to continue the Fritz family rule, whilst the other 2 daughters reproduced in order to spread the blood of Ymir to the masses, thus creating the almost ethnic group called the subjects of Ymir. The royal family, creating a direct line back to King Fritz and his blood, enabled them to exert full control over the founding Titan by having access to the Path's dimension, where they are able to command Ymir Fritz to fulfill their wishes just like their ancestor King Fritz did in his life. However, the question remains as to why in the world would Ymir continue to subjugate herself in a period of time that can only be described as eternal, just to follow the will of a long gone man that didn't care about her? Well, Ymir grew up as a slave, and as such never knew the concept of freedom to begin with. That's what led her to free the pigs as a projection of her own desire to understand that. Even after receiving her powers, she remained at Fritz's side as she lacked purpose to guide her powers to her own freedom, which led to her mentally shackling herself to keep sacrificing her own self and well-being to her abuser, something that never left her even after an eternity had passed. And you might be shocked, even Eren was shocked, Ymir in a weird way fell in love with King Fritz. Throughout her life, she knew nothing but enslavement. However, King Fritz was the person she could call home. He gave her a family and a place to belong, which was more than she ever had. This toxic love of hers manifested as complete obedience, which she was never able to escape. This is exactly why she keeps subjugating herself by following the will of the royal family's descendants. However, like a person going through an addiction or a toxic cycle of bad habits, Ymir Fritz yearned for help, to be free from this toxic love which chained her mind and soul. This is also why she sought liberation and chose to listen to Eren, as he was someone who finally did understand what she wanted all along, and that was just to be human at the end of the day. Ymir's powers, personality and feelings split the founding titans' power into 9 different titans over the years, where each one of them also represents the human in all of them. The attack titan represented the desire for Ymir's freedom, which gave this titan and its user the power to share memories of the future users to the past and vice versa. Through this, Ymir was able to direct Eren, the last user of the attack titan, to guarantee the result in which she eventually is set free. This process took 2000 years in real time, because Ymir was waiting to find a descendant who she could live through, a descendant who would be much like her, trapped by toxic love, making them uncontrollably obedient. That person was none other than Mikasa Ackerman. This is why Ymir chooses Mikasa as her representation to play out her projections of breaking free from her abuser and lover. Instantly feeling a close relation in mentality, Ymir manipulated a scenario where Mikasa would have to kill the love of her life, Eren. If she was able to do so, then Ymir too would be able to let go of her love for King Fritz and finally be free to move on to the next life. Ymir Fritz, with all the power of the world, could not kill her own lover, but wanted to see Mikasa, a window of herself, seeing through her eyes, be able to do so, meaning that this type of bond can be cut loose, thus causing the curse of Ymir and the power of the titans to be removed from the planet. Weirdly enough, for this scenario to work, Ymir Fritz had to make Eren out to be a monster like King Fritz once was, a man using the power of the titan to kill others for the sake of his people. But in my opinion, with the information we have right now, Eren in reality was nothing like King Fritz. I'm just saying.
That don't make no sense.
Furthermore, when we look at the extra pages Isayama released for 139, it expands on the relationship between Ymir and Mikasa. Once this reenactment was completed through Mikasa, Ymir retcons her own past, showing us an image of her not saving King Fritz that day and letting him die. She would have been free with her daughters and family, being able to truly live a normal and free life with the people she truly loves. The dream and peaceful ending she had always wanted. However, remember, this wasn't the case in reality. Ymir's obsession and love for King Fritz led her to die for him. Ymir made thousands and millions of people die for her simulation to be enacted. Worst of all, Eren doesn't even parallel King Fritz, but in many ways opposes his views, philosophies, and actions. Please check out this video being displayed to you right now, as it covers it in detail on what we think. Anyway, in canon's story, Eren came to understand Ymir and eventually even gave what she wanted despite the cost to his own dream. Helping Ymir cost him his own freedom and made him a slave. Despite all of that, Ymir forced this reality where Mikasa has to kill Eren. Ymir made her descendants suffer for 2000 years for her desire to cut the bond of love for that man.
Okay. Now that we ran you lot through Ymir's past and reasonings to why she did what she did, let's get into how she did what she did. I'm talking about her mysterious power of the founding titan and the realm of the path. We know that Ymir merged with the hallucigenia-like creature that gave her the power of the founding titan, but what exactly happened when she died? Well, after death, Ymir found herself in a mysterious plane of land filled with sand and auroras. This is the path dimension. So what exactly is this path, you may be wondering? Well, this idea of path was coined after noticing that the 9 titans can be transferred to random babies amongst the subject of Ymir if the the prior Titan shifter died without being eaten. The randomness was such that neither location, closeness of relationship, or variable factors affected it. This proved that something linked the Eldians together, like an invisible pathway connecting them all. So okay, paths are what connects the subject of Ymir together, invisible connection that transcends distance and blood relations, but what does this mean? For my math savvy viewers, imagine a graph theory. Every Eldian is a node in a tree, and the edge that connects the Eldians is the path. When all these path crosses, we get a point called a coordinate, where the root of all these paths that connects them all together is the founding Titan. Every Eldian in the world, from past, future, present, all comes back to this point. Well, basically what happened was that Ymir's soul and consciousness decided to transcend death, refusing to let go of the little love she had for her family. So with the help of the hallucinogenius spine-like creature, she was able to live on through every one of her descendants. Remember guys, her daughters ate her dead body, merging what was left of her and the hallucinogenia to themselves and their descendants. This formulated a world of its own, where the land of eternal sand represented the physical and material makeup of her descendants, where the core of this land linked back to an aurora and tree of light that represented the memories, life, personality, and consciousness of each descendant. Ymir is literally living in a world that embodies every Eldian. Manipulating the sand, she controls over their body, and by interfering with the convergence tree, she has control over their mind and memories. This world is separated from the world of the living, seemingly in a whole other dimension, unbounded by the laws of space and time, as evident by Eren being able to assert his influence on the past, as time in this realm is a constant rather than something linear. What that means in simpler terms is that time spent in the path realm is non-existent when compared to the time in the real world, because as a concept it does not move forwards, but everything that has happened and will happen is all occurring at once in this realm, which is why Eren can affect the past, as it is a part of the path's realm's present. This is confirmed by Eren Kruger in chapter 88 page 25 of the manga, who states that the path transcends physical space and time. For example, Eren Kruger, during his interaction with Grusha, he had memories of Mikasa, Ackerman and Armin before they were even born. Though this is unique to the Attack Titan, this showcases that time in this realm of the path is not bounded by progressive moments in space, rather time in this realm is simply defined by memories of every subject of Ymir, regardless of past, present or future. Think of it like a library of events that can be accessed at any point, and every book is an Eldian. And Ymir, the founding Titan, has full access where she can rewrite the books and change any event by simply influencing or changing the memories of her subjects. Along with this crazy power of mental manipulation and control, Ymir with the founding Titan can even change the biological genetics of every one of her descendants. Further back in this point, in chapter 115, as Zeke was dying from the damage he sustained from a thunder spear explosion, an approaching Titan placed Zeke's body inside of its belly. Zeke awakens in the path dimension within which Ymir needed the earth and molded his body with it. According to Zeke, this process felt like it lasted years, but it only took an instant in the real world. He then popped out the Titan's belly with hardly any time passing, fully repaired and healed. Literally everything that we see in the Attack on Titan series is because of these paths. Even the power and materialization of Titans comes from this place, which technically serves as channels for the transportation of the power itself. Memories, will, flesh and even bones that makes up a Titan's body are literally built here and then materialized into existence. This also explains the transformation of the Titan shifters, as Ymir is building up the unique Titan form every single time they transform, and she's able to do this because of how time passes differently in this world, hence why each Titan shifters have their own unique take on their respective Titan powers. As the lone inhabitant of this barren land, who can be seen walking around as a little girl carrying a pail of water, Ymir is the sole entity capable of making anything out of this earth. Just think about it like this: every Titan that we've seen in the Attack on Titan series was molded by Ymir, which actually does kind of say a lot, because Ymir does take the form of a child in the Path realm, and when the Titans are formed, they don't really have, the anatomy, if you know what I'm trying to say, the full anatomy of a human. Ymir is pretty innocent. Well, at least she would like us to think so. Anyways, with all that being said, paths are also strengthened by blood relations, dimensions, as memories can be transferred between family members if the power of a Titan is passed on to a close bloodline. However, this isn't a strict rule, as we've seen Armin actually possess Bertolt's memory here and there. It's also thanks to the path Karl Fritz created the vow to renounce war and was able to pass it down onto every royal founding Titan inheritor thereafter, hence enforcing his descendant and inheritor to conform to his will, ideas and philosophy using the power of Ymir in the path dimension. When Karl Fritz had the founding Titan, he had full communication with Ymir and hence ordered her to make sure every one of his descendants was binded by this promise, which is why later when we do see Zeke in the path after contacting Eren, he is shown chained up. These chains represents the promise King Karl made. These shackles was a literal manifestation of a promise that was made centuries ago. However, Zeke was able to bypass this because he, unlike Karl Fritz's other descendants, did not eat the founding Titan and did not possess the founding Titan, meaning they did not inherit his memories and hence were not influenced by his decision. But this all brings us to the next question on how are these royals even able to command Ymir when she's dead and living in another dimension? Well, even though Ymir had passed on, the lack of free will, thought and slave mentality of serving the royal family, specifically King Fritz, lived on, and the path connected Ymir to every single one of her descendants, including the royal families who were the direct descendant of her husband King Fritz, which is why Ymir only listens to the command of these royals. Therefore, the only ones that can use the founding Titan power properly and command Ymir is the royal family. Because of all the mad interbreeding, King Fritz's pure descendants also have a clear connection back to Ymir Fritz, meaning that they also have a connection to the coordinate and is much greater than any normal Aldean. Like, even if a royal-blooded Aldean did not obtain the founding Titan and instead had any other of the 9 Titan shifters, it is shown that they still have a slight access to the coordinates where all path meets. And if they have access to that, that means that they can have complete control over the other Aldeans, like a god amongst the Aldeans. This was the basis for Zeke's plan to use the founding Titan's power to change the biological structure of the Aldeans to make sure they can't reproduce anymore, aka the euthanization plan. Zeke, being a royal, can achieve the full potential of the founding Titan's power by coming in contact with Eren, who possessed the founding Titan and isn't restricted by the vow to renounce war. But this would also explain how Zeke's spinal fluid and his scream can transform other Aldeans into Titans, as once they ingest his spinal fluid, just like Ymir's daughters, they create a pathway where through it they are marked with a coordinate that Zeke has control over. However, with all that said, fundamentally Ymir is still the only one who truly holds the power of the Titans even after her death. The only reason Zeke and all the royal family members can use the power of the founding Titan is due to her subjugation to their will. In Attack on Titan's final season, Eren comes along and gives the compassion and understanding Ymir had longed for in her beyond eternal life, where she then finally relinquishes the complete control of the founding Titan to Eren. Zeke spent thousands of years in the path trying to understand Ymir but couldn't, whereas he stated that Eren knew what she wanted, thus a connection was made between the two. Little did Eren know it was for him to become a simulation, a reenactment to follow Ymir's plan for him to be killed by Mikasa, as freedom is an illusion. Everyone is a slave to something, and Eren was a slave to freedom. He was drunk on the dream of chasing after it, but in the end he was used as a tool for some therapy. Now, if that doesn't sound right to you in your head, or even sounds like a plot hole due to how you understood the story, then please watch our video being displayed to you right now. You might even enjoy it more than you think. However, all in all, Ymir ironically proves that the myth regarding her were true. In the end, her own selfish desire turned out to be the cause of the end of the world. Like, seriously, wiping away 80% of the population just because she couldn't find solace in moving on her own? She was the sole reason that caused Eren so much torment and made him to follow through her will and do the rumbling. He gave up his own freedom to end her fixations. Ymir was recognized as a god amongst the Aldean people, but as a devil to everyone else. She may have made the Aldean nation prosper, but that was at the cost of the destruction of other nations. Ymir forfeited her life for the sake of King Fritz, just to then obey his will for an eternity. Her feelings and her selfishness caused her to plague her descendants, particularly Eren and Mikasa, breaking their bond and forcing Eren to fall down the hole with her and become the world's devil. Again, this was all just so Ymir could simulate Mikasa doing what she had to do despite her feelings, all whilst already aware that this reality was going to happen because remember, in the world of Path, time is constant. Ymir knew everything there is to know about literally everything. She knew about this exact outcome, yet still followed through with it. It's exactly as Eren says in chapter 139. Nobody knows what the hell is going on in Ymir's mind. Eren bent his dreams, goals and ambition to help Ymir because of his humanity. Eren just followed the blueprint that Ymir had laid out. But to what end? None of his goals were ever achieved, and just like that, Ymir has single-handedly brought ruin to the world of Attack on Titan, as we see in the final page of Attack on Titan. The cycle is repeating, wars continue, and in the end, even the power of the Titan persists through death. With that, I hope we explained Ymir Fritz's story for you guys. If I confused some of you or made any mistakes, then let me know in the comment section below. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe and ding that notification bell to stay updated. With that, I'll catch you lot next time.